So I promised you that we're going to be hearing some very interesting insights with this next speaker, and having to get to know him backstage for a few minutes, I know he is going to come out with some very interesting information. Google is a company we don't only know, but probably live with intimately each and every day. So please join me in giving a very special welcome to someone who's here at eMerge for the first time. He is the head of search, assistant, and web product partnerships for Latin America at Google. Let's welcome Wilmer Caripe.
Good morning, Miami. It's great to be here. I'm Wilmer Caripe, and I work at Google in Latin America. I'm based out of Mexico City. I do partnerships to create great user experiences for our search and assistant products. And I'm here today to talk to you about a couple of things. I'm going to walk you through some of the trends that gave rise to the voice assistants and made voice assistants very popular. And then the second part of my conversation is going to be about some insights that we have gained over the last couple of years and that we wanted to share with you in case you're thinking about building for these new platforms and these new technologies. So with that, let's get started. So in the technology world, we have seen the evolution from desktop first to mobile first technologies in the last decades. What we are seeing now is another evolution, another trend that is taking us from mobile first to AI first. And with this, we're seeing the creation of many technologies that are assisting us to help us in our everyday life. They're helping us to order food, they're helping us to make phone calls, make text, and they're helping us find those photos that we have in our phone or in our computer that we took a couple of years ago and we don't remember exactly what date. So that's very interesting, and that is creating a lot of opportunities for us as makers of technology and for you as brands to engage with users in a very interesting and new and creative ways. So this transition we're seeing is a moment in which these technologies are going to change the way in which we interact with, users interact with computing. So it's an opportunity not for all of us to create products and services in an entirely new way. So mobile changed the world 10 years ago, and it made computing almost universally accessible, right? And it's still very relevant today. What we're seeing is that new users, especially in emerging markets, are coming online for the first time using their mobile phones, so very relevant. But now, a lot of things have changed. What we're seeing is that users like you and users around the world not only have their mobile devices with them, but they have a myriad of other devices to which they turn to ask for information and to get things done. So, in other words, we see that computers and computing and assistants are becoming prevalent in the world. And with that, we are seeing also users' needs evolving and users getting more demanding, requiring more and more from technology. What the users are expecting now is more personalized, more helpful, and more frictionless experiences in their interaction with technology. So that brings a lot of challenges, right? And what that has caused as well is technology companies to invest a lot in machine learning, in computer vision, in natural language understanding to try to match those requirements for users. And we think we are now in a very pivotal moment for which we are ready to start creating experiences that build on top of these trends. So what we're seeing now is voice. Voice as a new way for users to interact with computers, and at the same time, how voice marries with assistants. And that's what we call the age of assistants. And with that, we see the creation of many digital assistants that are voice-oriented, voice-driven. And in the case of Google, our response to that is the Google Assistant that builds on top of those investments that Google has made over years in natural language understanding, in machine learning, in AI, and also in other consumer products that we have built during this time, like search, like maps. Our vision is that the Google Assistant is the best way for users to get things done throughout their day, whether they are on the go, on their mobile phone, whether they are in the car, or whether they are at home. We also have a developer platform that is tied to the Google Assistant called Actions on Google that allows brands and developers like you to develop experiences that live on the Google Assistant and that users can use during the day. Like, for example, users can say, OK, Google, I want to play Trivia Crack, and that would allow a user to play this popular trivia game developed by a company in Argentina called Ethermax. So I talked a little bit about the trend of digital assistants and computing being prevalent throughout the day for users. What we're seeing also is that the Google Assistant is building on top of that ecosystem. The Google Assistant lives on top of this variety of devices that could have screen or could not have a screen. I'm going to touch on that in a little while. It could be smartphones powered by Android or powered by other operating systems. It could be smart TVs, smart displays, wearables, cars, speakers, and so on. Also, in terms of geographies, the Google Assistant speaks about 30 languages now. It's present in more than 80 countries. And in Latin America specifically, the Google Assistant is present or is available in all of the region and in the main languages that are spoken in the region as well. And as in any other emerging market, the users in our region do not escape that trend that I just described about demanding more from technology. So we are seeing that Brazil and Mexico, as well as India and Indonesia, are seeing a spectacular growth in usage of the assistant, about 7 times in the last years. You can also see in this slide some brands that we have worked with in order to build great experiences that you can, at this moment, use in your mobile phones or in your smart speakers with the Google Assistant. So enough talking about our products and our technologies. I want to shift gears now to talk a little bit about the insights we have gained over time while building the Google Assistant, while building all these technologies that I talked about, natural language understanding, machine learning, et cetera. And along that process, I'm going to invite you to think a little bit about these insights and reflect on how you can use those insights in the process of building experiences for this new platform, if you are in that process of thinking about it. So let's get started. The first insight that I want to bring to you is about how actionable voice is against search. The data we have shows that when people interact with technology with voice, they are about 40 times more action-oriented than while doing a traditional search. So people want to get things done, not only get access to information. I'm sorry if this is too small, but it tells here a little bit about the kind of things that people ask to the Google Assistant, for example. So what we are seeing is that the users want to do things, either general things or specific things. If people are bored, they ask the assistant to get them entertained, to play music, to tell them a story, et cetera, et cetera. They want to go home at the end of the day. They want to call their beloved ones, or they want to get things done. The trend we are seeing is not about passive interaction with technology, but also about more actionable stuff, getting things done. So this brings the first insight on when you're thinking about voice experiences for our users, for the consumers of your brands. It is, what is the user's intent when they're interacting with you? Is it really just knowing what are the opening hours of their favorite coffee shop? Or is it about ordering coffee and picking it up when they get to the shop? Is it about knowing where there is a store located? Or is it about ordering and picking up or ordering for delivery from that store? So we really need to think about the intent of the user and the context. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about context in a while. The second insight I want to bring to you today is about expectations, users' expectations. They're changing, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. When we started working with these technologies, we saw users issuing very simple commands, very simple queries. play a song, turn on the lights, tell me a story, tell me a joke, etc. We're seeing with time that those experiences and the way that users interact with voice assistants is changing. It's becoming more complex. The interactions are changing, for example, from asking weather in the zip code 111, for example, to is it going to rain today? Or do I need an umbrella today, for example? So that's an interesting query right there. Do I need an umbrella today? Let's unpack it a little bit. With this query, technology needs to solve for several problems that are interesting in natural language. First, you need to understand what is the context and location for that user to understand what's going to be the weather like that day. So location is an important part of the context that technology have to solve for in that query. The second part is that today means April 30th, right? So that's another part of the context that is implicit there. And the third one is that umbrella maps to rainy day, rainy weather. So a lot of interesting problems in natural language understanding that need to be solved. And part of the insight is that natural language, as you and I know, is very complex, and it can be something that we take a little bit for granted. Actually, I wanted to bring to you another example that is interesting. Can you guess or can you think about how many different ways users have been asking the Google Assistant to set up an alarm? About 5,000 ways, different ways. And some of them you have here in this slide. So something as simple as a command as setting up an alarm can be said in so many different ways. So what we're seeing here is that users are wanting to start to have really complex conversations with Google or with voice assistants in general. And with this, something that comes into play that is very important is context, that I have talked to you about. The context that we humans take for granted, that we use a lot when we are talking to one another, right? So we don't have to repeat things, right? When you talk to your friend and you ask, how was your day? You don't ask, what is your name again, right? You know that. So we are expecting technology to keep that context as well and use it throughout our interactions. For example, let's take a query. If you ask a voice assistant, where is the Miami Convention Center, for example, you should be able to ask, where can I stay close by? Where is a nice cafe to go and have dinner, or a restaurant to go to have dinner? Show me pictures. And the technology should be able to keep the context and give you the answers without having to repeat that you're talking about the Miami Convention Center, right? So as this natural language improves, we are seeing that users' expectations are also raising, which brings a lot of challenges in the way if you are trying to build experiences with voice, right? So there is an interesting fact I wanted to share with you, that is that humans understand between 90 and 95% of the conversations they hear. That's the statistics that we know is true. And with technology, with current technology, we are matching the average human in understanding the spoken words. The good news is that we are making those tools, those technologies available to developers. So if you're thinking about building for voice assistants, you can make use of these technologies that do not have to worry about natural language understanding. You just have to worry about providing the best user experience for your consumers and actually helping them get things done with your brand. So there is something interesting here that is that I want to reflect on. That is, not so long ago, when you had your first computer, when you got your first mobile phone, you had to figure it out. You had to figure out how it worked and learn to use it. Same with your favorite apps. What we're seeing more and more is that users' expectations are that the technology understands what they want to do without much of a learning curve, without needing a manual, which is a very fundamental thing that drives us to think, if you're going to build for voice, you really need to help the user get things done in a very easy way, that they can figure out an easy way, because patience is no longer there, right? The third insight I want to bring to you is about screens. screens in technology, in this world of voice assistants. What we're seeing is that while voice is having a big moment, like I have told you, the pattern, the user behavior we're seeing with users is that they're also using visual inputs. So where available and where it makes sense, users are tapping. Besides speaking, they're also typing if needed. So where we're seeing is naturally people are gravitating to the best way to interact with technology that makes sense for their use case, for the problem they have at hand. So this brings us to what we call a multimodal world, in which besides voice assistants, smart speakers, etc., devices that you can speak to, there is also many devices that are coming to the market that have multiple capabilities. You can tap to them, you can see the screen, etc. Which is normal. Just think about a use case in which, for example, you're trying to pick seats in a movie theater. It's much more easier if you see it, if you tap it, right, than through voice. So you have to think about these interaction models, which is the best way to interact with the users and the best mode in which users interact with your brands. And this also creates many opportunities for you as a brand for new, very engaging and creative ways that users can interact with you in these assistants. It also creates an opportunity to reuse a lot of your digital assets that you may have already available, videos, content on the web that can be reused on these assistive experiences. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later. Next insight is about routines. And this one is very interesting, because what we have seen is that users that are interacting with these voice assistive technologies are finding that different use cases are popular at different times of the day. So let's take a guess of when is the best time for a user to check the weather and listen to the news. Can you guess? Morning time. So that's what we're seeing, that users are trying to embed the use of these technologies in their day-to-day routines. So think about it. You're at home, you're preparing your day, you're preparing breakfast, you want to know what's going on. Usually, some people have the radio on. Some people, if you don't have the radio close by, you say, okay, Google, tell me what's going on, or how long it's going to take me to get to work. Remind me to stop by somewhere to buy something, remind me to call, et cetera, et cetera. So it's with technology being more and more prevalent, like we have discussed, it's easy to turn to whatever device you have around you and interact with the task at hand. So it's much more about the things you want to do at the moment, regardless of the device you're using, and more about the context in which you are. So this is something very interesting. Because then when you as a brand want to build something in this world, these platforms, you need to think about when is it that users need you most? And what is the context in which you are? Are they at home? Are they in the car? Are they in a bus station or in a train, et cetera, which is the best way to help them get that task done? And you may think when I'm talking about all these things that you need to create a super sophisticated experience, something really complex. The reality that data shows is that users just need and want help in really specific moments throughout the day. So think about those moments, those routines, when you're thinking about when your users need you most. Think about creating those, what we call toothbrush moments. There are moments inside the daily routines of your users that create habit forming, right? Like things they do day to day, how you can solve for those specific moments. And all the technology we're making available works towards that. Another insight I wanted to share with you today is very interesting because it challenges the stereotype of the early technology adopter. Right? You think about who are the ones who start using the new gadgets and so on, you probably have in mind some certain profile of people. Now, with voice, it's fascinating because even though voice assistants have been around for a short while, they are very popular, and they are very easy to use. They are much more intuitive than typing, than using a computer, than et cetera, because it's very easy, and a lot of people are using it as a consequence. Kids love them. You can ask my 3-year-old talking to the Google Home Mini about it. It's very intuitive for them. It's very natural, and they don't care about making mistakes when speaking. So, and adults also get it because they don't have to worry about their fat thumbs slowing them down when trying to get something done with a screen, with a touch screen. So it's very universal. Voice is universal, and with the improvements in natural language understanding, people's expectations are growing more and more about technology. There is no manual needed. It's intuitive and user, and the users are expecting that it understands them. So this is very interesting because it presents an opportunity for you as brands to engage with your users in different manners, your existing users. But at the same time, with this prevalence that we talked about, it generates opportunities for you to tap into new audiences that normally wouldn't interact with technology and with your brands in their devices. So think about this for a while. So what can you do with all this information? I threw at you tons of data and information in the last few minutes, and you may be thinking, boy, where do I start with all this? So the first thing I would recommend, I will leave you with 3 key takeaways here. The first one is tidy up your online presence. So if you have video content online, web content, apps, services online, etc., try to keep them up to date and thinking about all this usefulness, assistiveness that I have been talking about. Why? Because more and more we as a technology maker, as a system maker, and other technology platforms as well, are thinking and trying to leverage the existing ecosystem if that is the best way to help a user get things done, right? So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If the information is out there, we give it. If the way to solve a person's need is there, we reuse it. So you have to code less and leverage the content you have. The second advice I will leave you with is to speed up. Thinking about those toothbrush moments we mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Don't just create experiences. Think about those micro moments that were in a slide past that was about when people want to do things, when people want to learn, when people want to go, when people want to buy. And think about how you can be assistive during those moments, right? Think about when you're building for those moments and for those micro moments. Think if while you're trying to build, question yourself if what you're trying to build, is it the fastest and easiest way to help that user get things done? And for that, it's important that you understand the context in which the user is in. Where is it, which device is using? Is it the best way for that user to get a task done in that specific context? Talking about daily routines, et cetera, et cetera. And the third one is about learning. There is a ton of information out there from Google and other assistant makers that is available for you. And you can use that information to learn. This is a new platform, technology platform, a new way to build experiences completely different from what you have been doing before if you have been doing app development. So the information is out there. Our goal to make it available is to help you get the best experiences possible for your users so that they come back to you and interact with your brand in new and engaging ways. So with that, it's the key takeaway is that it's early days. It's as we have seen, the technology world moves very fast, and we're already seeing voice and assistant, surrounding us all around. And it is an opportunity for all of you to think about, in which new engaging ways you are interacting with your users, whose demands are ever rising, and how you can help them get things done in the best possible way with these technology platforms and framework that I have been talking about. So with that, thank you very much for your time.